Hey, this is Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanisms in a game called Crave that essentially flew under my radar even though I backed it on Kickstarter a while ago, but I am glad that I finally pulled it off my shelf and gave it a try. I've played it, 3 times in the last couple days, and I really, really enjoy it. It is essentially Star Realms, which is a deck building game where you're dueling against one other player to reduce their life to zero. But Star Realms is based in space. Crave is based in kind of an urban fantasy alternate universe where there are vampires and other creatures. And so one player is playing as the vampires, and they have a unique starting deck for vampires, and the other player is playing as vampire hunters. And so they have their own unique starting deck as well. And you're just trying to reduce your opponent's life to zero. But Crave does some things that are a little different than Star Realms that I think are really, really clever. And I'll mention them here. So one of the things that you can do in this game, and forgive me, I haven't played all of Star Realms. There might be elements in the expansions that do things like this. I'll stop comparing it to Star Realms. I'm just trying to give you a grounding. If you've played Star Realms or a deck building game like that, you'll have an understanding of how Crave works. One of the things you can do is that there are cards in Crave. They are plant cards. Here's an example here. That when you buy this type of card, you actually put it in your opponent's discard pile. And so it's a deck building game where you're not only building your deck, but you are impacting your opponent's deck with something that they don't want. This will hurt your opponent to have it in their deck. And in a deck building game, you're drawing a certain number of cards at the end of your turn. And so you really, not only is this a bad thing when it comes up, but it's also taking the space of a card that will definitely be more useful to you if you play that. So I think that's clever in a game where you're in a dueling game like this, one-on-one dueling game. In most deck building games where there's a card row to buy from, there is a single card row. But in Crave, there are three total card rows, 2 that you can actually buy from. There's the common card row. There's this big deck of cards that creates a card row of 5 cards that either player can buy from. And then each player, in addition to their own unique starting deck, they also have their own unique another deck, kind of a common card deck that creates a 4 card row that only that player can buy from. So this creates some really interesting decisions in the game because not only do you have that common row that you can buy from, but your opponent can also buy from it, but you also have this card row that you can buy from it at any time, and your opponent can't impact that card row. They can't buy from it. They can't do anything to it. And so you have complete control over it. So this led to some really interesting decision points. So I buy the card from the common card row that I don't want my opponent to have, that I want more than them, that I want to get before they get it, or do I buy the card that might be a little bit more applicable to my deck because it's created for my specific faction from a card row that really has no tension. I have no threat of my opponent taking a card from that card row. Really, really cool there. A cool element added to this game in terms of the asymmetry. Also, one little thing that I like about this style of deck building game is at the beginning of your turn, you simply play all of your cards. You simply put them all on the table. The icons line up nicely. I don't know if you can see it here. The icons line up nicely. And then you use those icons to either buy cards to attack or to sometimes gain some health in an order of your choosing. Many of the cards also have abilities on the bottom of the card. Let's see if I can find one here. Yeah, here's one that has an ability on the bottom of the card, and you can choose to use them anytime during your turn instead. This is done in many different deck building games, but I like that style. Also, one little component thing that I think Crave does well is that you start off with 70 health. I'll show you what it looks like here, and you have this little double card meter to show your current health. So currently my health is, say, 76. I don't think I've seen cards used to monitor points before, but I don't think I've seen this perpendicular card system to do that same exact thing. So I thought this was clever if you're trying to give players a way to keep track of their current health or score in a game, if you don't want to use a dial. What else about this game? A lot of it's driven by the cards. There's a huge variety of cards in this deck with a lot of unique fun abilities that you can get. They can combo together. I have in my notes here that there's both deck and tableau progression. Oh yeah, that's one other thing. Another corollary to Star Realms here, in that it's a deck building game, so your deck is getting better over the course of the game. You have engine building there, nice sense of progression. However, in addition to that, there are cards that come out. Let's see if I can find one. Here's one here. Actually, this one's a little more fun. Here's Keanu, a centaur, an urban fantasy centaur that can come up. And this whole game is also kind of hipsterish, which I really like. So it's a hipster urban fantasy centaur. And because it has this icon down here, it means that it stays into play. So when you play this, Keanu stays into play until your opponent takes Keanu out, and then he goes to your discard pile. And so I like that there's progression not just within your deck, but also on the table. Your tableau presence is getting stronger and stronger over the course of the game as well. I really like that. We've seen that in other deck building games, but I like how it's implemented here. And overall, I just have to say the theme is really, really well implemented in here. Both factions felt very unique in terms of what they were trying to do, and the designer really leaned into the theme of urban fantasy, modern urban fantasy, vampires, and other fantasy style creatures. In terms of what different factions were used and how they were designed, the art, and the abilities on those cards as well. So if you I don't know, I usually don't just outright recommend games, but if you like deck building games, dueling style deck building games, and you haven't heard of Crave, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I had way more fun with it than I thought I would, given that I knew nothing about the game going into it. Those are my thoughts on Crave. If this reminds you of any other mechanism in Crave, if you've played the game, or any other deck building mechanism, dueling deck building mechanism that you really enjoy, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks.